use cases of Web3 through DePIN.
This episode is sponsored by PIC, the Layer 1 blockchain purpose-built to power DePINs. PIC is about to launch. Check their website at pic.network right now. Hello everyone, Danny from DePIN Hub here. Today we're interviewing Luis, CEO and co-founder of Mawari, a company focused on delivering immersive 3D content through decentralized networks. They are innovating in the field of AR, VR streaming, edge computing, and blockchain technology to redefine how content is delivered to the users. They've been building in stealth mode for many years, and now they're ready for prime time. Luis, it's really nice to have you here in the podcast. We've been talking for the past few months, and I'm really bullish on what Mawari is trying to do. Let's get started by you introducing yourself, your background, and your role at Mawari.
Hi, everyone. And yeah, thanks, Daniel. This is great to be here, especially after DePIN Revolution, it was such a great event. Everybody that we invited is saying, yeah, heads down. Very good event. So, well, so I'm Luis, founder and CEO of Mawari. I started the company with my co-founder Takeo in 2017. So we've been out there for a while. But yeah, before about my background, I'm originally from Mexico, and I have lived in many continents, and I've been in Japan for almost 13 years now. Actually, yeah, I arrived in 2011. So that's one of the reasons why Mawari started in Japan, because we just happened to be here, and we actually decided to start the company. My background in terms of other things that I've done in the past, mainly studied like mathematics, but like more theoretical math versus applied math. I've been always in the creative technology industry. I was an electronic music producer at some point in time. This is actually how I arrived to Japan and met Takeo, my co-founder. That's how it started. Actually, I can start with how Mawari started. In a nutshell, Takeo and I co-founded a festival called Mutech Japan. Mutech actually is a digital arts festival that is focused on actually promoting emerging artists. And these emerging artists actually are highly committed to work with cutting edge technology. And in this case, it's audiovisual technology. So it's more about immersiveness and so on and so forth. The festival started in the year, I forgot, maybe 2001. It's more actually, because this year it was the 25th year in Montreal. And back in 2015, I saw a gap in Japan for this type of content. So I talked to Takeo and Shu, the other co-founder of Mutech, like, let's bring Mutech to Japan. Made a lot of sense. And when we started the first edition in 2016, it was also a coincidence that Oculus was bought by Meta a few years ago, and people were starting in that first wave trying to build things for VR. Similarly, the artists that perform at Mutech really wanted to get into VR, but they found that the barrier of entry was really high, because it was not just like picking up an instrument or just opening Adobe Photoshop or a music software and start jamming. You needed to know how to, or you still need to know how to use game engines, programming, network engineering, a lot of complicated skills for the craft, which artists usually, it's better that they focus on what they do best, which is creativity, not actually coding. And so we saw that gap. Okay, so there's the technology, there's people really wanting to experiment, but it's not accessible. So that's has been the mission and ambition of Mawari from day one, that we want to make immersive content accessible to everyone. Why we want to make immersive content accessible to everyone? So our main hypothesis is that, okay, so today we're still seeing media in frames, right? Like a small frame here. That's 2D content. But we envision a future in which the media will come to your eyes and then you become part of the media. So your surroundings, your environment is actually the media and you are the UI and you interact with it. We see this as an evident thing happening, just like in the sci-fi movies, many people relate to it, and this is why it inspired us to build Mawari, and here we are. That's mainly the story behind.
Yeah, nice. Thanks so much for the in-depth background and history of Mawari. Yeah, like in a remote many years ago as well. I was helping like a lot of art students to learn like processing, video mapping, all this kind of like trying to merge electronics and art. When I studied in Milan in Politecnico di Milano, I remember I just had like one semester. There's a quick story, right? That I wasn't really going to the calculus class. I was studying electrical engineering, but I spent most of my time in the arts. There was this course called Electronics for Designers. Then I was helping the design students to learn more about electronics, more about like programming. And I really like how this merging of like technologies and how people, like you're saying, the creatives, they don't really necessarily want to spend all their time learning how to code, right? But also actually using their creativity. So I do think it's a super exciting field. And I haven't been doing that for a long time, but it's something that I'm really passionate about. But going back to Mawari, what are the challenges that you guys saw when trying to build these kind of things, right? Like you're trying to build some AR technology, but then there's a lot of challenge in terms of the technology side, right? What has you guys have been building in the past for trying to help that?
Okay, so yeah, that's the second part, and I guess like I would call it like the second aha moment, or like a very pivotal point in the story of Mawari. So the first one is seeing the gap on content creation and the technology itself. But then once we started Mawari, just as you know, any startup to iterate with ideas. Okay, so a mission is make content accessible for everyone. That can mean content delivery, that can mean creation, that can mean many things, right? So we were trying to find the sweet spot, and that's when there was a very interesting RFP from KDDI, which is one of the biggest Japanese telcos. They had a very interesting problem, which is they had a digital human called Aiko, which was a fully AI human back in 2018. That was really unheard of. And they also had AR glasses called Enreal or XReal now. And they wanted to promote a service of a digital assistant with these AR glasses. And of course, leverage 5G. That was the other point in the mix. So, needless to say, there has been always this hypothesis that 5G is a very perfect match for AR and VR, and it is when it comes if you stream the content. So that was the challenge, basically, in which they made an RFP, help us stream Aiko into AR glasses and have a real-time conversation with this digital human in augmented reality. We joined the challenge. Also, big tech and big consultant firms joined that challenge. And it turned like, yeah, the David and Goliath, we were a 3-person startup at the time, and we won because we were the only ones that actually found a way to make this Frankenstein with the existing technology to make it look 3D and actually work in real time. So that's when we realized, okay, this is not scalable, and this is just when you build a patchwork of integrations of technology, that it becomes very vulnerable, not something robust that is ready for production or for scaling. And what are the main bottlenecks and problems here is that the content delivery infrastructure is optimized for 2D content. 2D content in the end does not require what we see with 3D, which is real-time rendering of 3D objects. So what this means is that the distribution of the nodes is very different to what would be required for 3D. So the other bottleneck is more on the device side. We have even the Quest 3 or the Vision Pro, they're super fat or thick. And this is because they need to be that way because processing is in there. And even then, this not super high quality processing like what would you expect with a high grade GPU like the 1490. But they use battery, they use power for that sense, and they get hot, right? That's another challenge to get enough power, but being efficient enough so that because the thing is in your face, if the headset heats up, it's not like it just burns your hand like with a smartphone and you just leave it there. I mean, it's in your face, right? So it's a balance that it has been a struggle, and the answer is basically, well, you need to offload that processing to a remote renderer, which can be at the edge or can be on the cloud. So those were the two problems that we saw that were a big issue. And finally, because the state of the art at the time was pixel streaming, which is something that just like right now we're streaming a 2D screen into the network. It works for certain use cases, but when it comes to augmented reality, it really doesn't work because there is a dependency on the network speed and the network stability. Because just imagine right now, let's say if the network stops, we or has an issue, it reduces the resolution and it starts buffering, right? But that doesn't create anything really bad. It's just annoys you and that's it. But imagine when the screen is in your eyes and for example, and you're moving and looking around and the screen freezes and you start buffering, it creates motion sickness, and it's not just being annoying; it's actually physical discomfort, and that becomes very vulnerable to the networks, and it means that the round trip latency between the device and the remote server that is rendering the content needs to be equal or better than the frame rate that you're rendering the content. And in AR and VR, you render at 90 frames per second or 60 frames per second. Going super technical, that's 16 or 12 milliseconds respectively of round trip latency. That's ultra low, and not even sometimes commercial dedicated networks can provide that speed today. So we had the challenge of removing latency, of finding a format that it was not 2D, and changing the architecture so that this could scale. So that's how we started to solve this problem. It took us 5 years to find all the pieces of the puzzle, but we created something that we called now spatial streaming, which in a nutshell is a 3D streaming framework in which instead of streaming just a 2D screen over WebRTC, we stream our own format that includes objects and other information like alpha channels, etc., that makes the actual 3D content be reconstructed on the device at a lightweight. So that's why we have been compared to MP3 and other analogs, because is compression, but it's more about how we pack the data and how we make it in a way efficient that is distributed over a network. And in the end, the device reconstructs, but the reconstruction is a very lightweight process that does not use a lot of power. So maybe I went very technical, but that's the problem that we identified and that we just went down the rabbit hole and to solve it.
No, I love it. I do think that's very interesting. I'm very interested in everything that you guys are doing in this sense, right? Because it's definitely a very complicated challenge, as I say, like you've been building for 5 years. And I think the AR and VR market is still very nascent, right? There's still a long way to go, but I believe that can be like the future, and to the point that people can just be so used to using that on a daily basis that they don't even think about it anymore. How do you compare the market in the world now and the market in Japan, where you are based, and how is it growing globally?
Okay, that's a fair question because Japan, my generation always saw Japan as one of the most advanced technological countries because they had that bubble with Sony and all those big corporations. But then it reached a plateau, and then it there are some very analog things in this country. However, when it comes to immersive technology like AR and VR, the adoption rate is higher because here it is a very good place for very niche markets. Uh, there are a couple cultural things, like for example, here people like to, or what it's not that like they actually respect reading a manual and following the instructions, and they have the patience for that. And in the Western world, the first thing that we do is we just open the box and try to use it, and it's like, oh, it doesn't work, but it's because we didn't read the manual, right? So for early stage technology like this, in which there needs to be certain steps to get the thing working, sometimes it works because people follow the rules, understand, and they don't get frustrated. So, and a very interesting story is that there was something very similar to the iPhone in Japan years back. That it was called iMode. So, see, Steve Jobs got inspired in that, and you can correlate the eye. And iMode, yeah, was in these flip-flop phones in which you had a kind of like a mouse to navigate between the apps. I mean, it was very complicated to use, but it was actually a smartphone in the end, or the basic principle of a smartphone. And these phones had even TV antenna, and you could watch TV while you were in the train. Steve Jobs got inspired and simplified for the Western world, in which, yeah, just anybody could use the iPhone and learn how to use the iPhone in very short time. So that's the difference that I see, that the Asian market per se, specifically Japan and Korea, are are more patient and highly educated to go into this niche technology, and it's a good place to start because people are also quite open to new technology. And the second is cultural because especially in Japan, we have things like anime, in which the anime always there are stories about virtual worlds, what you could call metaverse and things like that. So the concept of, for example, talking to a virtual person that you have never seen their face but is behind an avatar is not something that sounds outrageous here. So those elements make it like the best place to start. It's difficult because you need to understand the culture and speak Japanese, etc., etc. But uh, it is good. Then, if we talk about the Western market, of course, the US is the most advanced in that sense because the big tech and the manufacturers of the headset technology are mainly based there. But since the user interface is still learning curve, there's not that mainstream adoption per se. The adoption there is more on the enterprise side. Think about like enterprise use cases where factories, training, digital design, things about productivity when where this technology actually is already somewhat mainstream and it provides a real ROI. So that's where the Western market is focused, whereas the Asian market is focused from day one, as I would say it, in the consumer use cases, entertainment. And that's what made Mawari very different from the rest of the companies because we had to build the technology for consumers, not for enterprise use cases, which makes, if in terms of product, makes a more broader technology versus just something vertical or oriented.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are building the framework, right? Like the backend for like a lot of new use cases as well. I think that goes into tap into the idea of like a DePIN, right? When you guys realize that, okay, now we need to have this kind of vast market of people running their computers, or like the edge computing. Maybe if you could talk a bit about how does the edge computing works on a decentralized infrastructure for Mawari, because that's a key aspect of like, okay, guys, been building for this long. Now for having this network, you need people, right?
Yes. So once we finished the design of the streaming technology, we started going to market, visited the US. We gained significant traction, and the current clients were asking, okay, so but I really want to scale this. Can we do, for example, 100,000 concurrent users and launch a service? And the answer was, we don't know. Let us ask our partners, with at the time were AWS and GCP. And so we knocked the doors into the partners, and there's like, well, you need distributed GPUs in all these locations to that level of scale. Sorry, but not possible. So that's the third aha moment. It's like, okay, so yeah, the infrastructure architecture is centralized, is built for other use cases, and our use case, because of the latency, you need a short round trip or proximity between the rendering server and the end user. That is very similar to the concept of Helium, in which you do bounties on areas where you need coverage. So it's the same here. It's coverage of GPUs. We need to find the shortest round trip to the end user, because there's a tolerance. Even though our technology is focused on removing latency and other things, there's always a threshold that it will make the experience unusable. So for that, we need to distribute GPUs across countries, not just in centralized locations, strategic locations like traditional content deliveries. If this means for a big tech or a telco that they need to invest billions, if not trillions of dollars in new data centers, and for the CFOs is not justifiable when the volume is not there yet, right? So it becomes a chicken and the egg. And we saw render, we saw Helium, and it's like, okay, well, there's another way to bootstrap supply, and is with the power of the community and with the power of people actually providing their own resources, just like you put your own car to run an Uber car, right? And that's it. I mean, by the power of decentralization and Web3, we can align incentives and really bootstrap a network of compute and bandwidth that is needed for this use case. So in a way, and this is what I like to talk when I speak to everyone about Mawari, is that we are not just a DePIN because we want to be DePIN. We're a DePIN out of necessity. So we're a purpose-driven DePIN. That's how I call it.
I mean, I like to think that, yeah, projects like yours, that without DePIN you wouldn't probably succeed, right? Like you really need that part of like decentralized infrastructure of people to really like achieve mass scale. Otherwise, every time you want to use, you need to bring your own computer and you need to set up like the servers too close from the people. Yeah, that's super interesting. Why have more than 50 DePINs choose to build on Peak? It's super fast, scalable, low cost, and offers builders a ready-to-deploy DePIN backend. Peak is also home to the fastest growing DePIN ecosystem in Web3, with lots of relevant enterprise, more than 1 million vehicles and devices, and over 50 DePIN across 18 industries. And that's just the beginning. Building a DePIN? Peak's DePIN Grant program is focused on giving you everything you need to launch record breakers in record time. The Peak network in Tokyo will launch later this month. Check out Peak's channels for more details. You can find links in the description of this podcast. How much better like using Mawari versus anything else in the market right now? Because in terms of, you say like immersion, it's going to be like because of the codec, right? Like the MP3 version of augmented reality, comparing to like Oculus and other things.
Okay, well, we stream to Oculus, for example. So what I'm gonna say is it's difficult to compare, and I don't want to be over promoting Mawari here, but we enable use cases that were not possible before. So, for example, high-end graphics in a portable or mobile headset was not possible before we created our solution. Because, as I said, with other cloud streaming solutions or pixel streaming, you are very dependent of the latency of the network, and you add another extra layer of complexity. So our approach was, okay, let's do split rendering. We still render part of the scene locally on device, but the heavy content gets asynchronously rendered on the cloud or on the edge server, and that is a way that we provide the best of all worlds, a very performant and application that is running on the device, but at the same time we have very high fidelity content that is to the level that the consumer expects now. So another way to explain it maybe is, okay, so here today you on Netflix press play and you expect 4K. You don't expect like 360 or very low resolution. It's the same. We are already used to that. And before the devices could not deliver that, but Vision Pro, you have 4K per eye. So there's no trade-off there. If you stream and you're not streaming at that resolution, then the content looks bad. So that's the value, I would say. Cloud streaming for spatial computing is still very nascent because there's limited content. But when you think about, for example, like Netflix, you are not going to download the full Netflix library. You just want the content when you press play to be readily available for watching the movie or the documentary. It's the same with XR. We need that level of our readiness. So that's, I think, what our mission is. Make and it makes the differentiation with other companies and other approaches. And the second one is that we're focusing today on consumer use cases versus enterprise.
And on the use cases aspect, what is the one they're most passionate or excited about to see, like now or in the future?
Well, as I say, I come from a music background, so of course the next generation of music experiences per se, which is augmented concerts. That's something that I'm personally really excited about. But in general, at Mawari, what we see the future is how communication is as redefined, especially in Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Like when I was a kid, there was a time of MySpace, and MySpace was all about making your avatar and making your fake identity look cool. And then Facebook came, no, you need to be real, etc., etc. And I see exactly the same trend, but now here with 3D, is that Gen Z and Gen Alpha love avatars. And while maybe for our generation, it would be weird that instead of being our real face right now, it would be two avatars talking. For the new generation, it's completely normal. And that's what our technology enables. If when you ask about the difference, the way we define the core value that we provide is to sense of presence, which is bringing virtual content into the level of realism and immersion that you feel that the content is really with you, and optimization for awe or for the wow factor, because that's the other point. If the content doesn't wow you, then you forget about it, and we need people to start getting into this technology. So the use case of communication that that is avatar communication, let's call it, is probably where we are super bullish, and we've been working on that with the AI assistants, et cetera, since 2018.
I'd love to go to like a psytrance concert, like all the fire dragon and all the cool things on AR and VR. That'd be really cool to see. But then shifting for the company itself, like still Mawari needs to be, that should have revenue streams and should be like a company that like thrive financially. How do you see like the company making money, or what are the main revenue sources for Mawari?
That's one of the, I would say, elephant in the rooms actually for the XR industry. Just as is sometimes also for Web3, like where is the revenue? How are you actually supposed to make money with this? I can tell you that being now Mawari is a almost 8-year-old company, we have tried a lot of things. It's very difficult to generate revenue if you think in the way the internet is structured today, which is at scale and yeah, like user acquisition growth and building platforms. But there are not that many devices yet and not many trained users to really scale at that level. So the traditional, yeah, like a SaaS model doesn't work. That's the first part. So what is our hypothesis? And it consists of a couple pillars that I will mention. The first one is we made an analogy of video games. So video games started in arcades, and we would go to arcades to play them, and then competitions with our friends. Then once the companies figured out, okay, this is popular, we need to scale. We don't we can't build that many real estate for everyone just to go there. Boom, home consoles appeared, and then the rest is story. Online gaming, and then eventually, and now we have esports and streaming culture all around online gaming. So we see with XR a very similar evolution. The the only way, the feasible way for people to start getting into this technology is if you put the glasses and not force them, but it's not like you have to buy it. It's like the glasses are here, which means you need to get the people into the locations where the glasses are and the content is. So an example is the CEO of Magic Leap, Peggy Johnson, the ex-CEO now, focus on enterprise. Why? And a very specific use case that was training, because in some factories, the workers were already wearing a helmet with some sort of glasses. So it removed all the friction of the company telling them, now you need to wear the glasses and do something. It was just part of their job, right? And they assimilated the technology much faster. In the case for consumer use cases, unfortunately because of the pandemic, but the VR arcades were very, very, very hot right before the pandemic. It was a great way of entertainment, and people would pay top dollar actually just to go play on a VR arcade. It's picking up again, and this is what we call location-based experiences, in which, again, if the content is good enough and engaging enough, people is willing to pay for this. And this is what we are demonstrating is our main mission right now as a company, is that by partnering with like the top tier creators and making these location-based experiences. For example, at Mutech, we partnered with an artist and we launched an XR or mixed media exhibition. People were paying $20 for 7 minutes of content, and we were sold out. So, so see, it's a smaller scale because it's a physical location and limited people, but you can run many sessions. It's not just one session per day, but you can, for example, run 7, 8 sessions per day, and then because it's a premium experience. So, for example, just as you go to a concert, you may pay from $20 to $100 or even $300 for a ticket. Then you see the unit economics start making sense. Versus, okay, I need to sell the compute and the bandwidth at cents, and I have only 10 users. So that's when the economics doesn't make sense. So we're starting from that, and then if the content is engaging enough, and for example, yeah, you just told me about Psytrance. Okay, so So you go to a big festival in Goa, and you get the classes, and you have an amazing experience that you will remember for the rest of your life. You don't have the chance to go to Goa every single time, right? So you would be motivated if we later launch the at-home application to, okay, well, that's a good enough reason to buy a Quest 3. And okay, I'll experience it again at the comfort of my home, living room, or wherever you want to do it. So that's our core strategy on how we do this flywheel effect in terms of the demand, and we are actually monetizing and having revenue since last year.
That's really interesting. Thanks for the in-depth answer. And how do you see now then Mawari going forward? It's like, what are the key milestones that you guys trying to achieve? Like this month and then the next couple of years.
Okay, so now that we have proved that people is willing to pay for these experiences, that it's not early enough, that if there's good enough quality content, then this is mainstream and consumer ready. Now we need to find more partners and scale it. And for that, we need more supply, right? So our next step is to bootstrap the supply just as Helium did, just as Render did.
Yeah, and how do you see this AR/VR going, let's say in the next 5 years or even more, right? Because I think it's a long process to get everyone excited and also used to it.
Sure. I mean, there are many drivers for this to become mainstream. One of them is the one that Mawari is tackling, which is making the content more accessible, faster delivery, creation, and basically providing content that is ready to consume for end users. That's one recipe. The second one ingredient in the recipe. The second ingredient in the recipe is go from the really thick form factor headsets to normal glasses that you would wear every day, which again, it's a perfect use of a DePIN. And companies are starting to make very good breakthroughs on this. There will be very good announcements this month from Meta. Xreal also already released a very good and interesting device. So I see that if Meta and Apple, if I'm correct, they're being very aggressive, and in the next 3 years, they want to really release the first consumer-ready device. So think about like the first release of the iPhone, right? It was not perfect, but it was groundbreaking. It was easy enough for everyone to use. And then once the killer application of the iPhone appeared, which is not the first third-party killer application on the iPhone ecosystem appeared, everybody said, well, we need to build on this because it's a new way for monetizing. So that's what will happen in the next 3 years, is that killer use case of XR for consumers will appear, and then the developer community will start shifting into this. And as I see it now being building in XR for 10 years, it's probably around 2030ish when we see this more as a day-to-day use case in education, in navigating across the streets, etc.
Nice. Yeah, like definitely early, but being early means opportunities, right, as well. So that's why I'm very excited about being DePIN in general, and then really excited about Mawari. Where can people know more about the projects? We are releasing this episode during Token 2049 and Solana Breakpoint in Singapore. So we're here in Asia. I can see all the cool things happening. But everyone that are listening, where can know about Mawari, follow up what's happening here, learn about the node sale, and then help with the supply side as well?
Well, just I would say please visit mawari.net. That's our main website, and we will be posting all information and updates there. we're still early, so if you register in Mawari.net early enough, you can still make it into our whitelist. The let's call it like the Genesis members of the Mawari network. So that's also an opportunity. If you are in Singapore, I mean, we will be from Tuesday until Saturday, so we will be a couple of the DePIN events. So if you find someone with a Mawari T-shirt that I'm not wearing today, sorry, but if you see someone with a Mawari T-shirt, you can find more information about it. And also, if you want to check some of our use cases, we have a YouTube channel in which you can see the videos of the things that we've done in the past. But or just shoot us a note, regardless whether you register for the whitelist or not, with questions, inquiries, and we will do our best to reply.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Luis, for joining the podcast. I think it was very interesting. I'm super excited to see Mawari grow and expand throughout the world. If you guys are listening at home, make sure to go to deepinhub.io, subscribe to the newsletter, check Mawari there as well. We're going to have all the information about the project, all the links, and Mawari.net as well. And yeah, thanks so much for joining. It was a really cool conversation.
Awesome. Thank you a lot. Again, really happy with the initiative of DePIN Hub. I think it's good for the industry to have partners like you, because we need to help each other to really grow in this early stage.
Exactly. Have a great week, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.